Okay, so we're going to do a sequence of restorative poses that bring a little bit of energy revival and a bit of stress relief for the middle of the week. So just prepare yourself. So the more kind of precisely you prepare yourself, the easier it is to relax. So have your blanket and just make sure that it's well folded before we get started, so that a well folded blanket will kind of pay dividends in how it kind of helps you to relax. So a well folded blanket, you're going to have that for underneath your head, and then get yourself your bolster for underneath your knees, and then a couple of blocks for your feet. So this is our basic relaxation pose. It's nice to just take your glasses off if you're wearing them, and if you can, to cover your eyes with something like one of these eye pillows. If you haven't got these are, mine doesn't really smell of lavender anymore, but when you get a new one, they often, it's not that old, it doesn't smell of lavender at all anymore, but they smell really restful when you first get them. So, and you can replace the lavender in there, which is maybe what I need to do. So just get something to cover your eyes so that you can create some darkness. Have the blanket, just pull in the blanket in towards your shoulders so that you're supporting the back of your neck as well as your head. Just feel where the bolster is, just make sure it feels like it's underneath the backs of your knees, and just adjust the position of the blocks so that they're just supporting the backs of your shins, backs of your ankles. And then once you feel like you're in a good position, and you can cover your eyes, don't be in a rush to get into your final position, because sometimes your final position takes a little while to find. So give yourself permission to just observe and to feel that you can release and really let go. So I always find the first minute or two of a restorative sequence really lovely. You've been sitting at your desk all day, or running around working, or being busy with activities, and this first opportunity to just let go is really delightful. It's just a moment to savor. So the body is supported by the floor. Just observe where the body is supported by the floor. Soften your jaw and your tongue and your throat. And then allow yourself to release into the floor. So restorative yoga is never a chore. It's always a total pleasure. Just give yourself an hour to yourself, where you're not having to do any work or perform in any way other than just to be here, be present. Just release into the floor, observing how the floor connects to the body, how the floor supports the body. And while this is a practice of relaxation, it's not necessarily a practice of enforced stillness. So if after a little while you realize that you are not comfortable, then adjust your position until you are comfortable. As we move more deeply into the sequence, I'll speak less and less so that you're not having to consciously listen, so that you can relax. This is a process of relaxation. Just mentally scan the body for areas of tension and allow that region to completely release. Take deep inhalations, consciously breathing a little more deeply, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top, breathing into both lungs evenly. Just focusing on filling the lungs so that the lungs and the chest expands with the inhalation and the chest lowers and sinks with the exhalation. Draw your attention into the soles of your feet. So that the skin tingles with awareness. Draw your attention into the soles of the feet and consciously relax the soles of your feet. Draw your attention to the tops of your feet. Draw your attention to the tops of your feet and then relax the tops of your feet. Draw your attention into your shins. So that the skin of the shins comes to life. Draw your attention into your shins and relax your shins into the floor. Draw your attention into the thighs. Draw your attention into your thighs and allow the thighs to sink into the floor, completely letting go of your legs, letting go of your shins and your thighs. Allow your thighs to sink into the floor, observing that your legs are completely relaxed. Drawing that relaxation up into the torso. Draw your attention into your torso, allowing the torso to release itself of tension, relaxing the muscles. Relax your torso and allow your arms and your hands to relax into the floor. Releasing your arms and your torso and your neck into the floor. Just allowing your face to soften, skin around your skull to soften, neck to soften, and your shoulders and arms to release into the floor. Just observing that lightness of energy that comes from this reclining, supported pose. Okay, when you're ready to disturb yourself, just gently wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers, and then bend your knees. Bring your feet onto the bolster, and then just roll over onto your side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position, just in cross legs, just for a moment, just observing how your energy has changed. Perhaps you feel a little more lively. Maybe you're full of positive lightness. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of poses that just work to stretch out the shoulders, and those in turn help to refresh our energy. So if you've got one of these oblong bolsters, it's better for this side lying stretch. If you don't have one of these bolsters, then a tubular bolster, I often find that this is too kind of bulky for this pose, but it depends on your particular bolster. It might work. You might just want a cushion, or you can get your blanket and just fold it so that it's quite thick like this, and then it goes up into the armpit chest. Otherwise, you're just going to use the bolster, have a block for your head, just bend your knees, and then you just lengthen yourself along, lengthen your right side along the bolster, have the bolster in the armpit chest, and then you bring your shoulder down onto the floor, and then you have the block just to support your head. And then you're just gonna, you can stay with your top hand on your hip, or you can stretch your top arm over your ear and then release into the floor. So while you're here, just adjust if you need to, just until you're comfortable. While you're here, just spend some time breathing evenly into both lungs. So as you know, as we progress into the practice, I'll speak less and less so that you're able to relax rather than having to concentrate and listen. This is about relaxation and holding the pose. So once you're comfortable, then allow yourself to release. Okay, bring your top arm just back to rest on your upper side, around your hip, and then push the bottom elbow into the floor. Just sit yourself up into a seated position, just sitting cross legs for a moment, and again just observe your energy. Observe how one side of the body maybe feels lighter and longer than the other. So we even that out. We're going to do the same pose just on the other hip. So on the left side, just stretching out along the bolster, bringing the shoulder down onto the floor, bending your elbow into little right angle, and then just resting down onto the bolster, and then bringing your top arm over your ear. You can always put a block underneath that hand just to support it if there's stiff shoulders. This is really good for stiff shoulders, this pose. And then when you're ready, just bring that top hand back over onto the hip. Push your elbow into the floor and then just bring yourself up into a seated position, just observing your energy, observing the lightness of energy from the inside. So we're just going to do a little gentle spinal twist. So bring your bolster long ways like this. I'll show you first, and there's a couple of ways to vary this pose. So you just sit with your knees bent like this, and then you lift up into the chest, really elevating the chest along the bolster, bringing the chest down onto face the bolster, and then stretching your head, so your arms out to the side, having your head resting on the side with your chin in the same direction as your knees. Now, for some people, this feels a little uncomfortable unless you go a little bit higher. So you can make your bolster a little bit higher with an extra blanket, or you could even pile a couple of bolsters one on top of the other. If this really isn't right for you, then you can do the butterfly pose, where you just come down onto your back, and then you've got the bolster supporting your back and supporting your chest. Otherwise, coming into this little spinal twist. So lifting up into the chest, moving away from the bent knees, drawing the chest along the bolster, and then just resting down with your head on one side, just resting your head so that your chin is in the same direction as your knees. Bring your elbows wide enough apart so that you're not supporting your weight with your arms, just draping over the bolster. If it feels too intense on your back, just move your knees away from the rest of the body a little, just to soften the sensation. But this should always feel comfortable, not uncomfortable. So we're not going to stay here quite as long as the previous poses, just a little longer, but not as long. Okay, push your hands into the floor, push yourself up into a seated position. Just observe your energy. Observe the really quite profound effect that this pose has on your energy. and then just sit on the other side. So have your hip close to the end of the bolster, and then lift up into the chest, elevating the chest along the bolster, and then just allowing yourself to release down into the floor. Okay, bring your hands underneath your shoulders and then push yourself up into a seated position, and then again just come into cross legs. Just observing that clean energy that flows through the body. And then get the bolster for your back. So for our butterfly pose, pull your feet in towards the seat bones and then guide yourself down along the bolster. If you feel like your head is rolling back, then get your folded blanket and just put that underneath your head. Just allow the front of the chest to open. Breathe evenly and deeply, listening to the breath. And we're just going to finish in the heart position. So just stretch your legs, stay on the bolster and just stretch your legs away, stretching your legs along the floor, the bolster underneath your back, and allow the body to release into the floor. Just letting the body release into the floor. This supported Shavasana pose just allows you to keep the chest open and broad, just allowing your energy to flow. Okay, when you're ready to disturb yourself, just Stretch out your legs, just push from the hips into the heels, pulling your toes towards your kneecaps for a moment, just bringing energy into your legs. And then gently roll over off your bolster just onto your side for a moment, onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg. Just come back up into a seated position. Just final cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Drawing your breath in through your nose down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this evening, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the reclining poses bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then very gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards, and as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel as though you've really lifted your energy for your evening, and you should sleep really well after that as well. So thank you very much for joining me.